Hey, I'm Mike Gilliam, and welcome to Let It Rip. While the reopening of New York is underway, and the critical numbers connected to the coronavirus pandemic are very encouraging, all is not yet back to normal. We still are not back in our Fifth Avenue studios, but instead we're doing another show remotely via Zoom. While we continue to practice social distancing, we are able to discuss the pressing issues that matter to all of us. Welcome to Let It Rip. We're living in a historical time. Race, systemic racism, and racial disparities are being discussed like never before. Brought to the forefront by the George Floyd killing at the hands of Minneapolis police, the killing of Rayshard Brooks by police in Atlanta, and the COVID-19 pandemic and its disproportionate effect on Black and brown communities. Real changes are taking place across the country and around the world, from calls for police reform and the reallocation of funds budgeted to police departments, to dropping the iconic and stereotypical images used to sell foods and other products, to the removal of Confederate monuments. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell supported the Black Lives Matter movement in a video statement that some are calling too little too late. Even NASCAR banned Confederate flags at its events after their only Black driver, Bubba Wallace, spoke out about the symbol. Now, all of this is occurring against the backdrop of thousands and thousands of protesters taking to the streets, marching for social justice. We want to look at what is happening through the eyes of some of our younger voices who are on the front lines of the change that is sweeping across the country. Joining us, we have the president of Medgar Evers College's Student Government Association, Sakia Fletcher. Tim Smith, an activist based in Atlanta, who is on the ground organizing around the Rayshard Brooks case. The editor-in-chief of Caribbean Elite magazine, Andrene Nicole. And Omowale, Adewale of Black Vegan Fest. Welcome to all of you. Now, a lot of this is tied to social distancing, and it's led to some horrible interactions with police. Let's talk about that. How do you see all of this?
Police should not be enforcing social distancing. That was the issue, the major issue, especially here in Brooklyn. You had police officers enforcing young people not wearing masks, but them themselves didn't have any masks. So that's a major issue, that police should not be enforcing any COVID-19 precautions at all.
Andrene, jump in.
When you look at it, when you go out there, you see these bars that are open, and you see people that are at the parks that are Caucasian, and they're not social distancing, and absolutely nothing is happening. There is police presence there, but they're not pressing them. When you go to our communities, we have people that are just sitting on their porches and they're being harassed. So obviously it's no equality that's even shown when it comes to social distancing. So I completely agree. They should not be enforcing that at all, because it's being used against us as another way for them to oppress us.
Omowale.
The ground zero is where we are, everywhere we are, anywhere we are when we talk about COVID-19. So there's just not the resources that are hitting our community, but the resources that is being aimed at us is in a form of police containment. So, anything that we need, anytime that we have a hiccup or we have an issue, the way to quell us is to use police. And so how we've been responding right now is on point. We just need to turn up the heat and keep it up there.
I recently read an article where the New York police commissioner said that there was not a lot of misconduct among police officers on the streets of New York, only about 10 disciplinary cases. Is that what you guys are seeing out on the ground in Atlanta and New York?
Atlanta is basically a powder keg at this moment, waiting to explode. The protests or the demonstrations as of late have definitely been on edge because they've ignited a core group of the community who are harassed heavily by the police, and they are fed up. People have literally been looking for a reason to set it off on the police. So the organizers have their hands full. The Wendy's where Rayshard Brooks was murdered at, I was there Saturday night. There were brothers with semi-automatic rifles and pistols out, guarding the area because the night before a white man had opened fire on the crowd. So tensions are very high in Atlanta.
Sakia, what's your take?
I've been out there with the protesting and not protesting, and we should definitely be out on the streets. But we definitely have to tackle each and every component, and that means being out there on the streets, politically, economically, and even dealing with our court systems. When I think about the civil rights movement, they took court cases, you know, and they also used voter registration where people was voting. I feel like sometimes in our community we are too focused on being out there on the streets, where we need to be tackling every single component and knowing that our power is, you know, able to spread to every single facet of where it's institutionalized racism, where we spend our money at the end of the day, boycotting those places. That's what Medgar Evers spoke about, boycotting out where we spend our money.
Andrene.
But let's be frank and honest. If the young people weren't out there doing what they were doing right now, there would not be any change that you see that's occurring right now. We see big businesses that's coming forward, that's actually donating for the community. We see people that are actually coming out and saying they're for Black Lives Matter. That was not happening before. We were protesting out there, marching, and within a few days, everything disappeared. We got distracted by everything else. But the young people right now are so consistent in what they're doing, and every day they're pressing forward. The only other piece that I think they're missing is going out there and making sure that they're voting, because their voice needs to be heard on that level as well.
The police reforms that we're seeing right now, do you see it as real change or temporary change? What are you really seeing as far as that's concerned?
We're not saying get rid of the police. We're saying that we want reform. We want them to do their jobs the way they're supposed to do their jobs. And right now, the way they're doing it, it is not working. It is one-sided. So I think they're on the wrong side of the fence, especially our Black brothers and sisters that are police officers. They're on the wrong side of the fence of this. They're a part of that gang, that police gang that they've formulated with each other, and not seeing themselves as Black before anything else. So I definitely think that the police are pushing back right now, but we need to keep pushing harder, because reform is necessary.
Yeah, but wait, so these reforms, are they real reforms or is this temporary stuff?
Well, we ain't talking about reform. You know what I mean? Like, nah, forget that. That's over with. We gave them an opportunity. We gave them a chance. All this, we did sensitivity training. Y'all remember that? We did the whole CPR, courtesy, professionalism, respect. We get no respect. They are not courteous, and they're definitely not professionals. These are criminals. And so we need to treat them as such. We're talking about community control. So I want to be clear, if it's not said, when I say defund the police, I'm literally talking about defund the police. So even though, and I support and I'm with movement for Black Lives, that is a legitimate Black Lives Matter, you know what I'm saying, organization that was headed up by the Black sisters that's organized. So I want to be clear in stating that. So I support, but I say we should go further than defunding, you know, the $6 billion budget that the NYPD has right now is massive. That's more than some countries have, you know, for their entire military, right? So this is paramilitary uniforms that they have on, paramilitary protective gear, you know, weapons. You're talking about high grade. You know,
let me ask you, when you say defund the police, what do you mean? Do you mean get rid of the police? Because that's the argument some of them are making right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're saying
that's what folks are doing.
You mean and cut back on their allocation? What do you mean?
Well, I'm talking about in terms of what Seattle is doing and Minneapolis is doing. Minneapolis said, get up out of here, you know, and they're not having the police department there, you know, in that space, because why we act like we're not thinking in beings and we can't create our own systems with the people. So they're not talking about, you know, when we say, oh, we don't want to defund the police, we're saying we want the community to decide. Not folks who just run out rampant, you know, in total chaos and anarchy, but that we run it. We literally run it. And we need to have some backbone behind these elected officials where they speak unapologetically Black. Speak unapologetic. This is a particular time to go ahead and do that and really get that frog out of your throat and really start speaking truth to power.
Tim, what do you think?
I think it's optics, to be honest. And as far as police reform, I'm not mad at the discussion, but if we punish the police like criminals when they do these offenses on citizens, I think police reform goes out the window. So my personal stance is, you know, punish and put them in jail like you would anybody else who shot someone in the back. And police reform, you know, I mean, what is there to reform after that?
To defund the police absolutely is something that we have to do, because we have to allocate the money into certain aspects of the police department and make sure that the training is being done well. And it's making sure that we're putting the money into the communities as well to make sure that we have people there that are from the community, that understand the people that live in the community and their way of life to be able to move forward in that area and in that space.
I agree with that because there is no way to reform a racist with a badge.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Good points there. Let's take a short break. And when we come back, we'll get your thoughts on COVID-19, where we stand now in New York and other places around the country, and where we're heading. I'm Mike Gilliam, and this is Let It Rip.
You're watching CUNY TV, the City University of New York.
I'm Mike Gilliam. Welcome back to Let It Rip. Things are moving forward in New York, with the city entering phase 2 of its reopening from the COVID-19 lockdown. Governor Andrew Cuomo called the effort by New Yorkers a success as the number of hospitalizations and deaths continue to fall. In total, we had more than 209,000 confirmed cases. Nearly 23,000 New Yorkers died from COVID-19, and the disease hit our communities extremely hard, with it proving to be much more deadly for people of color. So, how do you all see it?
I'm gonna be honest. COVID is real. I know people who have lost people, but it's one of those things where it makes you wonder if they're really doing a number to target Black people with the way they go about this, because it was only Black people on the news. I only know older people who have been impacted by it. There's maybe 2 younger people around our age group, but I just
I don't know about
so
that.
I'm torn on it. But I know Atlanta is probably different than New York, so that's just what my reality is down here.
I think that people in New York see this much differently than people around the country. And I think that is because we were an epicenter and we've lost people that were hospitalized and that sort of thing. And they're just starting to see that in other parts of the country right now, What do you guys think about the spikes in Florida and Arizona and Texas? Those are places that opened early and really supported the president.
I think that's the major issue right there. They supported the president. Let's start there. The president has been flip-flopping about COVID-19 since the day that this virus was announced that it came about. First, it's nothing. We've got it under control, and then we don't have it under control, and then it's like test people, don't test people. When you're following behind someone that has no leadership skills, this is what is going to happen. There are people that were out there in Florida. They're blatantly out there on vacation. They're not wearing any masks. They're having a good time. They're at the bars. Like, no one is social distancing. No one is protecting themselves. So that's what you're seeing right now, where you're not following the proper protocols. At least follow the CDC. Even though they might not have it right 100% of the time, at least follow the guidelines of the CDC so you're protecting other people, because other people's lives are contingent on you following the laws or the rules of the CDC. So sometimes people are out there, they're asymptomatic, they could be out there protesting, they don't believe that, they have COVID or they could pass it. But then there's the other people out there that are susceptible to contract this virus. So I see it as wear your mask, do your social distancing until they figure this thing out, because another person's life is contingent on you wearing your mask and being protected.
That asymptomatic thing really concerns me. I mean, recently D.L. Hughley fell out and he had no idea that he was diagnosed or that he had the disease. Why do you think that this has hit our community so hard?
So COVID-19, it just showed that when it concerning health disparities in our community, that it just illuminated it. So it's always going to hit us more. And usually in our communities, there's not only 1 or 2 people in the household. You have a number of people in the household. And, if one gets sick, my daughter, somebody else might get sick. So I think it has just impacted us in a different number of ways. And even if you didn't necessarily get sick or hospitalized, you still were affected if somebody in your household, in your family was sick. Because I mean, as a college student, just to not be able to go to school, loss of wages, just to stop in your education. So it has hit our community disproportionately in so many different ways.
I think the underlying medical conditions is a part of the issue as well. When you look at our communities, like, we really suffer from diabetes, high blood pressure, hypertension, and it just really highlights how unhealthy we eat. And a part of that reason is because of the systematic things that have happened to our people. It's not necessarily that we're choosing to not eat healthy or to live an unhealthy lifestyle. It's because we've been pushed into that. We don't have the opportunities to be able to make a certain amount of money to be able to shop at Whole Foods. Like, we don't have the resources to be able to take care of ourselves, to work out and do things of that nature. Some parents have to work 24 hours a day or two different jobs at a time. So of course the unhealthiness, it really raised the awareness of our community and what is happening there. And it really hit us really, really hard. And it was very hard to sit back and watch, to see your parents, grandparents, or even younger people that were being impacted just because of the underlying medical condition.
Yeah, and like food insecurity really came out big during the discussion of all this. Omowale, why don't you jump in here?
We really don't have that time. So what Black Veg Fest essentially, did in 2018 is really open up that space, so folks could learn about veganism within the community, because Rastas was doing this. I learned about veganism through Black folks. ITAL, when folks say ITAL, when they talking about ITAL foods, folks just like, you hear veganism, you getting confused by the words because it's just two different words. But Rastafarians were doing this years ago. They don't touch, dead flesh. So the information that I was getting when I was a young person was coming from the Black community in terms of veganism. We talk about International African Arts Festival. They had folks there years ago. They've been around for like 50 years. I remember them, I can remember 30 years ago going and learning about, them telling me about particular foods, that were all plant-based and that had no animal flesh in there. But our community has consistently eaten, and then we also can't really listen to their information as it's released because Tuskegee. So we're confused a lot of times. So we don't even know, when we talk about just so much history and just talking about in terms of not really being able to trust the material that we're receiving. But we need to have that information and have a dialogue that's in a Black space that are talking about health and awareness. So what we did is we totally agree what was coming out about COVID-19. You need to have a face mask. You need to, because there were just simple things to be able to do. And then also we saw the carnage in the death in our communities. It made sense. We came out with Black Veg Fest Breakout to kind of educate folks on how to eat, what kind of plant-based meals you can eat for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner, and how we can fellowship and come together. Black Veg Fest, every single time we come, it's thousands of people. 2018, 2019, we come back 2020, and it's mostly Black people. It's Black folks, and it's literally us educating each other, on these particular topics. But we can also, but I want to bring up one last point. We're getting it because we're also the essential workers. So when we dine, we're the essential workers. Of course, it's going to be us. We're doing the work. We're the sanitation workers. We're NTA. We're in the hospital. We're the nurses. It's our community that's doing it. So that's another reason.
Okay, Tim, do you think that people were scared by COVID-19 into protesting, into taking to the streets? Do you think that played a role?
Yeah, but in the beginning, when George Floyd was murdered, that first wave of protest, definitely everybody was masked up. But you're starting to see that kind of relax a bit more. But you do see people still out there with their masks, but not as heavy as it was during that first wave of protest.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I gotta be honest. At that point, when I saw that video, the George Floyd video with the cop and he had his knee to his throat, at that point, I was like, if I die from COVID, I don't care if I die from COVID, but I'm being out here on these streets. And a lot of other people in New York was feeling the same way. At that point, it was like, enough is enough. We already had it, with COVID. And then it was just that video. You had people in Brooklyn just being outside on their porch without a mask. Police officers sitting on them. So it was video after video. It was the build-up. So at that point, I mean, most of us was like, if I die from COVID, but I'm going out taking somebody with me. I'm taking down this business. They're going to know today that we was here.
We've touched on a lot and also heard some very interesting perspectives. I want to thank our guests, the president of Medgar Evers College's Student Government Association, Sakia Fletcher, Tim Smith, an activist who is based in Atlanta and who's been organizing around the Rayshard Brooks case, the editor-in-chief of Caribbean Elite Magazine, Andrene Nicole, and Omowale, Adewale, Black Vegan Fest. Thank you all for coming on and sharing your perspectives. And keep up the good work. We're going to take a short break. I'll be back with some final thoughts. I'm Mike Gilliam, and this is Let It Rip.
Hi, I'm Mike Gilliam, and the show is Let It Rip. We're coming to you from New York City with a viewpoint that goes beyond the headlines. We're talking politics, the economy, social unrest, the things that matter most to you. It's called Let It Rip. Come join us for the conversation.
You're watching CUNY TV, the City University of New York.
I'm Mike Gilliam, and welcome back to Let It Rip. Now for some final thoughts. This year has been a year that no one could have ever predicted. Started off with leadership not paying attention to the warning signs and intelligence on the novel coronavirus that said that we needed to prepare. A few cases that the president said would soon be gone exploded into a pandemic that has killed more than 120,000 people, many of them disproportionately Black and brown. We were slow to act, but eventually much of the country was placed on lockdown. We're wearing masks and gloves, even though the president refuses to wear a mask in public and appears to place the importance of money and the economy above the health and safety of the American people. We've worked from home for 3 months. Restaurants and bars closed, stores closed. Couldn't even get your hair done or a haircut. Skyrocketing unemployment, sports seasons canceled, colleges and university campuses closed, and online learning or distance learning the new normal. And if I had told you that this was going to happen last Christmas, I don't think anyone would have believed me, but that's the reality. All of that, and we haven't even added in the social and racial unrest that came with the police violence that finally was seen and understood with the George Floyd case and the others, including Rayshard Brooks and Breonna Taylor. In this age of divisiveness, who would have predicted that Blacks and whites would march together day after day under the Black Lives Matter banner? Now there's real talk of reforming police departments across the country as a way to end violence against African Americans and other people of color. Some have called for defunding the police, and politicians have seized on the phrase to make it seem that people are calling for us to get rid of police departments. It's a lot like the president saying Colin Kaepernick's kneeling to protest against racial injustice and police violence was a protest against the flag and the military. Clearly, policing has to change in the country, and the few bad apples argument rings hollow. It's been quite a year so far, and we're only halfway through it. One can only hope that the ills that we face so far lead us to positive change on both the healthcare front in our communities and a real reform of policing so that men of color can live like the rest of society and not have to worry that every encounter with a police officer could end up in a violent confrontation and death. I'm Mike Gilliam. We'll see you next time on Let It Rip.